Congratulations.
Okay, next item, please.
Could we just congratulate
Oh,
them publicly?
oh,
Is that okay?
absolutely,
Let's give
absolutely.
congratulations to Ms. Sewer and Mr. Brown. I don't know if they're still, I'm sure they're still watching, because they know they're on there, so. And we'll have them at the next meeting.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Next item, please.
Next item, discussion item, 2021-2022 second budget revision and 2022-2023 budget.
That's right.
Mr. Thomas Wall.
Good evening again, board members, trustee McDonald and Dr. Maleko. You gotta give us a little time. The computer timed out, which is not surprising.
So did we.
No, you know why? It's because they shut down at midnight. It's set up every night.
So we did have a discussion at the finance committee earlier, and they recommended that I double the time that we talked about. So,
We were so entranced by your
We're gonna get
report.
rid of an executive director.
yes, that she can. All right, so as part of the requirement by law, we are required to adopt a budget by July 1st. So under the Truth in Budgeting Act, we advertise that we're gonna have this public hearing at today's meeting, and we adopt the official budget in the second meeting in June on the 20th. Since it's so late, we're still gonna follow legal requirements, so after I present, well, after there's any comments from the audience. But, since we're so late and a lot of people have left, I maybe ask the board that our next meeting during public comment, we just bring that up again, just for the convenience for those people that can't necessarily stay this late. So just so you're aware, we'll meet the legal requirements, but I think it's good for the public. So the numbers, I won't go through all the numbers, you guys already know. This is a $448 million budget. It has a lot of components to it. Again, 85% of our cost plus is on staffing, so all the other parts is 15%. I'll come back to that one as we come. So some of the significant changes. For the 2020-21 school year, we got $171 per pupil. Increase, correct. And so one of the things that we're required by law, since we're a hold harmless district, we can only increase by the rate of inflation, which is $109 that we were allowed, which left $62 in limbo. So in the past, they would give us as a categorical 20M to basically make us whole for the full $171. And that categorical is just basically purely on the wishes of the legislators, not required by law. However, what they did this year, instead of giving us that categorical, they put a caveat in the code that wasn't caught at the time, and we didn't find out till October that they decided for us to get the additional $62, they want us to reduce our hold harmless millage. So they notified us in October of '21 that we were required to do that. However, in Dearborn, our millage is for Dearborn, the city of Dearborn, 100% in the summer and nothing in the winter, and Dearborn Heights is 50-50. Well, majority of our district is from our Dearborn tax base, so at that point, we couldn't do anything. So they then required us to react this year in 22-23 going forward to account for that change. Now, your hold harvest millage is based on your student count, it's based on the taxable base. So depending on all those factors, and we didn't really know what our final student count was until probably January when it finally gets audited. So there really wasn't anything we could do back then. So after going through it and spending a couple of weeks with Treasury, they have decided we had three options, and we didn't get to choose the option. They recommended that we move forward with this option that for the 22-23 levy, we'll reduce our levy to make up for that shortfall. So having the numbers we have now, the projection of students and the tax base, we roughly levy about $12 million with our hold harmless millage. Since we levy the full amount, when the revised calculation, we should have levied something less than that. So we owe 7.4 of that 12 million back to the public. Now, we don't necessarily give out refunds, because that would be a tumultuous process to do. You gotta extend the meeting, sorry.
Trustee Barry, trustee D'Ambrosio, may I have a roll call?
Yes. Trustee Barry? Trustee D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Trustee Moses?
Yes.
Trustee Petrichoff?
Yes.
Trustee Thorpe?
Yes.
Trustee Watts, yes. And President McDonald?
Yes.
All right, so I'll go back. So that, we basically have to refund 7.4 million back to the public. We would have raised 6.3 million this year for the levy. So what we're going to do, which is the benefit of the public, we're not going to levy the hold harmless millage for 22-23. And then depending on our student count that comes in the fall, the tax base, that next year, the enhancement millage will come back, enhancement, hold harmless millage will come back for 23-24 at some dollar value. So at this point, the taxpayers are going to get a credit on their tax bills for this upcoming year for the hold harmless millage. So that's a big change that we kind of had to work through the process with the Department of Treasury. In addition to that, we obviously had the increases in compensation this year. Supply materials and vendor availability has been a real struggle for us this year, along with everybody else. And we actually had higher absenteeism, than we normally would have experienced in a regular year because of all the quarantines and the ability to actually bring people in. So our absenteeism was way higher, which in turn made our contracted subs much larger in a budget. So those are the major changes for the 2021 year. I'll just quickly go through these. This is just on the upper level. As you can see, majority of our income comes from income tax and sales tax, and the 6 mil special education tax that everybody pays in the state of Michigan. That makes up mostly about 75% of our revenue. I won't get into all these. It's just defining what those categories are. Just showing you some of the history of our funding. So as you can see in 21, they are proposing a large increase. Just showing where the sales and use tax is one of the reasons why. You can see where that much larger number came in. That's why they're showing a surplus this year. Fiscal year growth, again, these are just statistics. I want to get to the next slide. So after all is said and done, as you know, the state goes through a budget process of their own from October through September. In January, they estimated revenues. They estimated a surplus. And so that's where our current state, recommendations are coming from the governor, Senate, and House. However, when they did the May reconciliation, they have roughly $5 billion in the availability of funds for both the schools and the general fund. Now, normally that would be great news because $5 billion in the school aid fund, we could get a $600 to $700 per pupil increase. That's possible. However, in the current environment, I don't know if we're going to see that high of a number, just because there's been a lot of talk of tax cuts, giving residents money back. So we'll have to see where that goes. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have not seen any kind of state aid form or approval at this point, because I'm sure there's a lot of discussions going behind the scenes that we're just not privy of. So just know that there's a lot of money available. They could move more money from the college into the school aid fund because there's only a percentage now. So those are the things that we have to watch to see where the state actually ends up on there. So all said and done, it's basically an estimate right now because we have to require to go through this process and have our budget done by June 30th, where the state doesn't have to worry about it till September 30th. So looking at that, the other thing that we're worried about is inflation. Inflation right now, as they show on this graph from May, it's close to 7, almost 8%. It's going up fast. And it'll eventually tailor off, but that doesn't help us right here and now. So we have to be aware and cognizant of that. So looking at next year, for the 22-23 school year, the taxable values increased 3.15%. Obviously, we're dealing with that hold harmless adjustment. The foundation allowance, we're estimating at $435. That was kind of the mean where the governor, House, and Senate at. So $435 is still a significant increase to us. What we're looking at expense size, just remember that the increase in the foundation allowance for all our contracts this year represents the increase that we'll get for our salaries. So I'm estimating roughly about a 4% increase in salaries for next year just based on our contractual values. And again, we have a younger workforce because we have a lot of change. Looking at a traditional program next year, just like we started this year, so looking at a traditional program. And the other thing you have to deal with is an infrastructure. As you see as we go through this, I'm going to push more money to the building and site fund to help us offset that until we get a better direction, short-term and long-term, on our infrastructure. And it froze. So I'm going off schedule. Oh, there it goes. Maybe. David, do you want to look at it? I don't know what it's doing. It's just sitting there.
It's tired, like the rest of us.
Tired. All right, so the next graph,
There you go.
go back one if you don't mind.
Yep.
Nope, go back another one. Another one. Another one. There we go. All right. All right, so as part of this process, as required by the Truth in Budgeting Act, we have to talk about millages. So we are going to levy the 6.17 mills we normally would have levied. That will be 0 next year. So that is a direct savings to homeowners next year on their taxes. On the 18 mills, we're levying the full 18 mills against non-homestead property, businesses and all that. That doesn't change. And we're at 3.5 mills for debt. Now, next year, after this year, to 22-23 school year, that will go slightly over 1 mil. Now, we've had many discussions during our budget discussions that it's going to go down because the 2002 bond is coming off the payment schedule, and that's why it's dropping.
So,
So just be aware of that.
sorry
Yes.
to interrupt you, Mr. Roll. Can
Yeah,
you
feel free to
repeat-
ask me questions.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going
can you
fast.
repeat that again?
So-
That's crucial.
So the 6.17 mils is not going to be levied next year. The year after that, it might be 2 to 3, 4 mils, depending on our student count and our taxable base. So that's going to change. And basically, because of what the caveat they did in the code law, since we're a hold harmless, they want to roll that number back to offset those taxes. Now, we don't know what the final law will be. That could be something going forward, that they do a 2X formula versus a full 435 for everybody. That's how they're talking now. That could have an implication on our hold harmless millage even going forward after that. So again, we're really up in the air on that. So the 3.5 mils for debt, that's what we're levying for 22-23. After this year, when the 2002 bond falls off, we're going to be a little over 1 mil as we get through the 2014 bond program.
Correct. So if we were to do any kind of finances next year, then that's a new tax.
Correct. Yeah, by law, since the millage dropped, anything above that well over 1 mil would be a tax increase. And it would actually be on the ballot language that way.
Okay, thank you.
So this is just a graph showing the increase in the foundation allowance. Student count, obviously, if you remember in 21-22, the year before that, we were in the super blend. That's where they looked at 2019-20, took 90% of that, and only 10% of the 2021. So you'll see that we actually, on paper, lost funding because of the students for this current year. And then for next year, we're looking at a 378 student increase in our student count for next year. So you add that all together. You know, this is our model that we have used for quite many years, looking at forecasting next year's bottom line. If you look in the middle of this section where it says 2021-22 operating surplus, I'm actually budgeting a loss of 1.4 million. Typically, every year, we budget conservatively because things change as we go along. So typically, we would see that number being positive, and we would end up adding $1 million, $1.5 million to our fund balance because of the surplus of not everybody spending every single dollar in the budget. What I'm trying to do this year is that normally I'm increasing the transfer to the building and site to put more money aside. That way legally I can do that. But if that money doesn't appear, I'll roll that back. So it's a different philosophy. I'm budgeting a negative, and if we don't have the money in the surplus like I expect, then we wouldn't do the transfer. So we're not gonna actually take money out of the fund balance, but I'm setting myself up financially and legally to be able to transfer that money if we do have it. Does that make sense? That's a different concept. So I just wanna make sure, again, being more aggressive because we gotta start putting money aside and building a site until we figure out what we're doing on infrastructure. Okay? Looking at that, you can see that we have the 378 student increase, the 3.7 health insurance, looking at roughly 30 retirements, and a foundation increase of 435. So at the end of 22-23, we still will have a budget balance. I'll have a slight surplus there. Again, that's just looking at student count, showing you what the fall, we use that to make sure we know what targets we have to hit come the fall. All right, looking at this one, this is dealing where we talk about the foundation allowance of 435. I'm estimating a 5% rate of inflation. I've been on with Treasury, the director of the treasurer, everybody all up to the top, trying to figure out what that interest rate will be next year. Because again, the lower that number is, we might get back into that whole issue again of rolling back our hold harmless millage and all that, and whether we come in. So right now at 5%, we're okay. There would be no categorical 20M or rollback of our hold harmless millage. Hopefully it'll be that simple. Showing the increases, and again, the compensation on the bottom of what we budgeted for staffing increase. On the other side, you'll see on here, most of the changes are on the bottom. If you look at item item V, that was kind of brought up today. One of the options we have is looking at the virtual program. If we did, schools of choice for virtual only, it could be full or limited, depending on what size we have available. We could have anywhere from $500,000 to $1.5 million, depending on how many kids come to that program. Then on the bottom, you'll see a lot of changes. A lot of our numbers are going up for some of our categoricals because our compensation goes up. We have to pay retirement, so the state gives us some offset money, so you'll see that. But if you can focus on the bottom of the LL, you'll see that I'm trying to transfer more money to the building and site fund. Also recommending a one-time adjustment of $1 million for equipment, vehicles, and all that, because this is the last year, 22-23, that we're using ESSER funds. After this, we get back into that, what they call a budget shortfall, where the money that we have in ESSER funds has to come back into the general fund. So if we don't do that extra $1 million now, we're not gonna have that opportunity for any kind of scale. That could be buses. I know they've been trying to get a boom truck here for a long time, so we don't have to rent one all the time whenever we're doing roofing work with HVAC and stuff like that. That will be decided later, but that's the idea. And in addition, the 2.125 we have set aside for the purchase of the SME buildings. So when you look at it in just oversight, I know the numbers are not necessarily on here. For this year, we're looking at transferring $10 million. In 22-23, $15 million. So that's where I'm kind of show where we're trying to move money to the building and site fund to address short-term needs. And those needs could be safety and security, they could be, more buses. So that's what we'll have to decide on what to use that additional capital funding for. I know Mark has plenty of ideas of what he wants to use it for. All right, and again, just quickly reviewing the ESSER side. Remember, in 2021, we had regular ESSERs, equity ESSERs, GEAR, Section 11P, Section 103.2. That was that first year through the virus or the pandemic. Then this year, we're using ESSER 2 because most of the ESSER 1 and that first year grants went into ESSER 2 to cover. And then next year, the loop you can see is going to ESSER 3. So it's kind of just showing the flow. Now, will we have some extra money after 22-23? We may, but that'll be in the next year's budget amendment so we know where we're actually standing at.
Mr. Wall,
Yes.
we do know that we don't pay salaries from ESSER funds.
We do, yes, we do.
We do?
Yeah, we put a portion of our counselors, social workers, nurses, things that are dealing with the pandemic directly. So a portion of their salaries do go to ESSERs. That's how we were able to transfer so much money over the last several
Right.
years into the building and site.
So how will we be able to maintain that much funding since this money is
So
gonna
that
go away?
15 million we're transferring to the building and site in 22-23, we'll use majority of that to offset, which means that after next year in 23-24, I won't have money to transfer to the building and site. We'll have to decide on a more fundamental source of money for capital improvements.
So just to clarify, we're making kind of a maneuver here, or
Correct.
a move.
A legal maneuver.
A
Let's make
legal
sure that's clear.
maneuver, just to cover so we can talk about security today and we talked
Correct.
about resources that we need.
We'll go back to that work that the committee did, look at bathrooms, look at
Right.
security, those
So we
things that were higher
cover that
priority.
with that much money that we have, but because we have to spend that ESSER fund.
Correct.
And there are some staff members that are being covered by ESSER funds.
Correct. Yes, they are.
But then, in a year, then we're gonna be like, or two, we're gonna be looking out for those funds.
So when we get to the
We would have to ask for a bond. We
23-24
would have to
school
ask
year,
for some kind
we're
of
gonna either have
financing.
to figure out some way to address infrastructure, or our transfers to the building site will go down. And then it'll be going through the whole budget discussion, what do we still have to maintain, because our buildings need to still be addressed for HVAC, for safety, security, those kind of issues.
Thank you.
I need a meeting
I'll
extension.
move to extend.
almost done.
I'll be the bad guy today. I've been,
Trustee Moses, trustee D'Ambrosio, may I have a roll call?
Trustee Barry? Yes. Trustee D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Trustee Moses?
no. I'm serious.
So I won't go through all of these, but these were.
Just continue, wait one second. We're continuing. Go ahead.
Trustee Petrichoff?
Yes.
Trustee Thorpe?
Yes.
Trustee Watts, yes. President McDonald?
Yes.
I'll support that decision as well.
Okay, I won't go through all these, but there's some of the things we're looking at for next year. And again, looking at, this is just showing you the the numbers in total by all funds. I won't go into that much detail. And then this is for next year. So the key issues, obviously, the finalization of the state aid fund is going to be very important for us because it has many ramifications of how our funding will come in and in the future. So that's going to be very big for us. Continue to monitor the closeout of this year. Unfortunately, we are dealing with a lot of late purchases that we've ordered just not coming in. And again, since we're at June 30th cutoff, they got to go into next year. So it's going to cause some messing of some of the budget that might be available, might have to roll into next year. But that's, you don't have to deal with that. but we have to
Mr.
deal with
Wall?
that. Yes, sir.
So I'm clear, if we have been approving things, right, but we haven't spent it by the end of this year because of things beyond our
Delays.
control,
Correct.
that won't be able to be counted in this year's
Right.
budget. It'll have to go to next year's budget.
Right, hence why I have that negative
Okay,
numbers. I have that money, I can at least put it aside in the building and site fund to be paid at a later date.
okay, thanks.
And then obviously our fall instruction program will still be the traditional method. Staffing adjustments, we may reduce staff, that's all depends, where the retirements come in and how we're gonna replace them. So we could be adding staff, so we'll be monitoring that. And again, the infrastructure discussion still has to continue. We still have to be addressing that, educating the public, and making a decision on where we go. And that is it.
Any other questions? Okay, next item,
Hey, wait, you
please.
gotta ask questions from the public.
Oh,
Yes, so
Oh,
just
yeah.
give an
Thank you.
opportunity, if anyone would like to talk about the budget or their concerns.
yeah, these folks are gonna jump on it.
It will be after today, yes. Yes. In color.
Next item, please.
All right, thank
Board
you.
of Education
Thank you, Tom.
Business, acknowledgements of correspondence.
We've gotten a lot, oh, please.
I got an email last week from, I believe it's Preservation Dearborn. I'm gonna be talking to them. They're very interested in historic structures we've got in the city, and of course, we've got several schools that fall into that category.
Anyone else?
I'd like to join you if you don't mind. And I'd-
Yeah, I'm just gonna hear a little bit about what it's about. I think they're gonna schedule meetings, so that I'll share it with the whole board.
Thank you.
Yeah, they have a Zoom meeting tomorrow night, actually.
But just keep in mind that 4 of us can't be in that meeting.
Well, yeah, we're
I'm
going
just
to,
saying, yeah.
they're actually coming and speaking at my DFNA meeting
Oh, cool.
on
All
Wednesday.
right.
So, they wanted to do a presentation.
We've received a lot of different correspondence, and a lot of them pertaining to things that were covered tonight. Next item, please.
Board member committee and organization reports.
Trustee
Okay,
Peschakov.
we had a committee meeting for the superintendent evaluation that I was suddenly juggled into. I've sent everybody the link to the MASB evaluation tool that we used, so I hope everybody was able to open it up and either download it or work with it online. Please bring the filled, completed report with you. We will be having, when we met, we decided that for transparency's sake, we're having an MASB facilitator coming to handle our meeting so that we had no discrepancies in how we interpreted the tool. And we're also going to have someone taking minutes as well, so that we have good clarity at this evaluation meeting. I also want to remind everybody that there was a 2020 survey that was done under Jim Thorpe's, that had reviews. When people ask about our review, or going out to the community, we had a 2020 survey that, if you don't have it, I can share it again with you, the results of that we used in 2020, I believe, during that evaluation process, that communicated with the public. And in your board briefs, you'll find under Ms. Farage's Dearborn High link, we do a Cognia review survey that is handled by an outside third party that surveys families, staffing, it's not directly related to the superintendent, but to the climate. It's a climate culture survey of the school district. that might help you, and everybody got all of the artifacts that Dr. Maleko shared with us as well. So.
I'm sorry, I just want more clarification on that survey. How-
It's-
how'd you- where
It's
is it?
on, it's on in-board
Yeah,
briefs.
yeah, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
do we do that on a monthly, I mean, on a
A
yearly?
year- It's an
Yearly basis?
annual, correct?
And it goes
Yeah.
to, you said families and staff?
Yeah?
They have not
Yeah.
had such. I'd like to hear more about that,
I,
obviously.
I've got the,
We can definitely look into that later.
Yes, please, Fatmi.
Good evening, everyone. The one we just completed is for 21, 22, but previously we did one in 2020. In 2021, we changed the theme a little bit because of the pandemic. So we focused the questions more on social emotional for staff and students, but we do a survey every year. And we do it for all stakeholders, students, families, and educators in general.
I'll look into that, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Trustee Barry?
We get like close to a 360, is that what we're doing?
this one, it's more, it gives a set of words to describe, which 4 words best describe something, okay? So for the families, it was, in general, your child's school, which 4 words best describe in the interactions you have with the adults in your child's school, which 4 words describes your experience with your colleagues, which 4 words describe, in general, your institution's culture.
Is that part of the tool that we're using?
No, I said, I just wanted to let you know, because one of the criticisms, in one of the emails we had was that we don't reach out to the community and we're not using a survey of what's going on in our community, but we actually have at least something to gauge about what the community is thinking or feeling about our school district.
May I add that when we do administer surveys, it depends on the purpose for what we're administering the surveys for. For example, this year, because next year we have the Cognia review, Cognia is formerly Advanced Ed. So we didn't want to send multiple surveys since they do serve the same purpose. Some of the questions in the surveys that we just administered are focused on the culture of the district, and those are for the families, students, and staff. So we do not send multiple surveys at one time. The 360 would go along the same theme, but we make sure that those themes are covered in the surveys that we send out. In 2020, they were specifically based on the specific period and the needs. So it depends on what we're looking for. If it's for strategic plan, also, we try to include questions that would cover multiple purposes, so that we're not bombarding the district and the community with multiple surveys. So those questions I just shared, the most recent ones, I pulled them out of the lengthy survey, and these were specific to the culture. Just to clarify that we do it for different purposes, and we try to, like you've heard the high school students earlier, we sought their feedback, and we told them, what questions do you want on the survey that we send out? And they asked us to include the food in the cafeteria. So we pulled those 2 questions in the analysis, and we sent it to the food department. So we include from all aspects of the district and make sure that we're not duplicating surveys for parents and teachers.
I went through the contract, that's why it's still in your lap.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to use this as part of it. I was just bringing up that this was available to you if
Oh,
you
you said
wanted
it's
to
there.
look at it, yeah.
Okay, because we heard some comments today, and now we're
Right.
talking about surveys, it's like, are we doing a 360 or not, so, but.
No,
we're
no,
not.
wouldn't have had time to do a
We're not,
360.
okay,
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page, thank you.
So just one more clarification. In the 2020 survey, we asked staff members about their direct supervisor, meaning the building supervisor, and then we asked them about central office supervisors. And another question was about the superintendent specifically. That one was,
Yeah.
we'll give you the right, I mean, the specific answers.
I'm just saying, if anybody wants to look at it, it's there.
Is that the end of your report?
Yes, that's the end of my.
Were there any others?
You gonna report on finance again?
Oh, God. Well, yeah, I forgot. We had a finance meeting. It was exactly what you saw.
That was the shortest committee report in history.
Were there any more? That's it? Okay, next item, please.
Board member superintendent commentary.
I have
Dr.
one.
Maliko.
This is officially Dr. Chokel's, last time she'll be at a board meeting, and so if we can give her a big.
Well, we made it a memorable one.
We extended it just for you.
She'll remember this one.
I just want to mention that graduations have been just phenomenal, and seeing students walk on stage and greet their parents, and I'm looking forward to more graduations. Sorry, I misspoke. Graduations for some programs and honors night. I'm looking forward to graduations. Although we've been hit by a lot of very, very sad situations, and I appreciated the unity that we have. And this is what we are, Dearborn. We stand together, especially in the time of grief, in the time of testing, that we stand together for everyone. And as we pledge for this country, for the Pledge of Allegiance, we always continue with justice for all. Thank you.
Trustee Watts.
I just wanted to add to that, congratulations to all the graduates, and I beg them, please be safe out there. I know that they're gonna get excited, and I know, but just, this community has been rocked the last couple of weeks, and I just pray that I know, teenagers, I get it, but please,
Lead by example.
yes, please, yes, find something else, just be safe. And I just I forgot to mention that I wanted to thank you for putting together that music, committee. I think that a lot of our students will benefit from it, but I wanted to say thank you for putting that together. I think we'll be able to have a great music program in all of our schools going forward. So I appreciate that.
Anyone else? I just have a reminder again, as soon as you get home, go fill out that survey that I sent about the available times for the meetings, the upcoming. Did you?
I already
Okay.
did it too.
All right, good. So, I will hopefully set that up in short order. Next item, please.
Requests for information and/or future agenda items.
Anyone? Trustee
I'll
Barry?
make this real quick. If we can get an update on facility use. I know we spent a lot of time at policy with that, then we switched over to another committee. If we can get an update on where we're at there. Number two, we just got educated, well, some of us knew, some of us got educated on our district attorney. Who do they represent? Who do they actually work for? If we can get an opinion from our legal on that, please. Also, a few years ago, we did the transportation budget. How much goes out of, how much is outsourced, how much we do internally. If we can get that updated, I'd like to take a look at it. And that's it.
And I gave mine earlier,
Yes.
the report for next. Oh, Trustee Watts.
I just have two, and I think we heard it, that we've seen a lot of teachers who are absent because of COVID and COVID protocol. I wonder if we could get, and I think I mentioned it before, what is our rate of absenteeism for our students this year compared to pre-COVID? To see if we've seen an increase in that. And then also the Title IX funds to see how much we're spending on, the female sports versus male sports in terms of how many coaches as well, just to see if we can get an understanding on that one.
Anyone else? Next item, please.
I,
Oh, we have to extend the meeting?
I have, okay, let's extend the meeting. Another motion to extend this meeting?
Support.
Okay, Trustee Moses, Trustee Watts, roll call, please.
Trustee Barry?
Yes.
Trustee D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Trustee Moses?
Yes.
Trustee Petrichoff?
Yeah.
Trustee Thorpe?
Yes.
Trustee Watts, yes. President McDonald?
Yes. Trustee Moses.
I just have a question about the lottery system for the college, early college program at Collegiate Academy. We can get information about how is it being conducted, and I say that I already know how it's being conducted, I just need like the full details.
Is that it? Anyone else? Next item, please.
Future meeting dates, Thursday, June 9th, 2022, HFC Board of Trustees Ad Hoc Committee, 10 a.m. at the Administrative Services and Conference Center, Henry Ford College, in the Board of Trustees workroom. Monday, June 13th, 2022, HFC Board of Trustees meeting, 7 p.m. at the Administrative Services and Conference Center, Henry Ford College, in the Rosenau Boardroom. Tuesday, June 14th, 2022, P12 Superintendent Evaluation Meeting, closed, 7 p.m. at the Administrative Service Center in Room 12. Monday, June 20th, 2022, P12 Building and Site Committee meeting, 6 p.m. at the Administrative Service Center in Room 12. Monday, June 20th, 2022, P12 Board of Education meeting, 7 p.m. at the Administrative Service Center in the Frank Franchi Boardroom. Tuesday, June 28th, 2022, P12 City Relations Committee meeting, 4 p.m. at the Dearborn Administrative Center in the Emergency Operations Center.
We are adjourned.